Through knowledge and understanding, we master our purpose in the world around us. Without this understanding, time is wasted. Your life serves as an example of such wasted effort, and perhaps in death we can find the purpose that eluded you. Known by many names across Urt, he is most commonly called Nerull in the Flanaes, a name bestowed upon him long ago by the Flan people. Nerull is among the most feared deities in the Greyhawk pantheon, revered as the god of death, murder, darkness and the underworld. The Gloom King is not a god widely worshipped. His influence may wax and wane, but it is understood that Nerull seizes the souls who are unprotected by the patronage of another divinity, dragging them into his hellish underworld. He remains a constant and terrifying presence, a stark reminder that death is inevitable. Origin. Theologists agree that Nerull is irredeemably lost to the corrupting influence of the father of evil Tharizdun. They speculate that he fathered two children, Selene and Luna, only to be able to cast the world in darkness and have all creatures at the mercy of his daughters. He may have been one of the great gods that banished Tharizdun, but did he really help? Perhaps it is due to this help that we will at times feel the influence of Tharizdun. Theologians ponder why Nerull is the god of death, darkness and murder. While he claims all mortals in time, which cosmic murder among the gods did he perform to earn such titles? Was it Tharizdun who pushed him out of neutrality and convinced him to murder his own father? Who was Nerull's father, and does he lie bound in Tartarus, forever tortured and drained of blood by his traitorous son? Did Tharizdun, through cunning whispers, guide Nerull to the dimension that the goddess Beori had become? Many believe that Nerull is the brother of Pelor, forever lurking in the shadow of this bright entity. According to these beliefs, Nerull contested Pelor for Beori's affection. Beori, mother of all, birthed the spirits of nature, life and home. It is believed that Nerull saw in her his salvation from the servitude he had succumbed to under Tharizdun. Cold and envious, he resorted to any means to secure Beori as his consort. Yet Beori refused him time and again, and only through deceit did Nerull father two daughters with her. These daughters remained close to their mother, however, illuminating the darkest hours as the twin moons of Urt. It is good to remember that origin stories are the world of theologists. They may all be wrong in the end. Appearance. Nerull is depicted in various forms, depending on the culture. Most humanoid cultures depict him as a tall, gaunt, horrific figure, like an animated skeleton covered with leathery flesh, the color of a well-used blood altar. His grinning face is adorned with thick, ropey black-green locks, and between them glare two eyes of lambent green, matching his teeth and taloned nails. Evil creatures see him depicted in their own form. For example, he can be depicted as a colossal orcish shaman, clad in a cloak studded with blackened iron plates, his face a simple, heavy skull with vacant, staring red orbs for eyes. He could appear as an impossibly thin shadow that has the rough shape of a cloaked aristocratic figure, his face a featureless, polished obsidian skull with thin strands of hair and dark red or green orbs in his eye sockets. In some cultures, he is portrayed with a sickly grey skull with pronounced brow ridges, showing a look of wrathful malice. The empty eye sockets contain a single, intense red-orange glow. Dark, stringy material, either his hair or rotting strips of flesh, hangs down from a dark hood. In either case, he is always shown with Life Cutter, a staff of red-veined sablewood that, at his command, grows a scythe blade made of scarlet energy. Relationships with other faiths. The first god we must address is the elder deity Tharizdun, who first led Nerull away from neutrality and onto the path of corruption and evil. Though Tharizdun has not been seen for ages due to his binding, his dark tendrils continue to manipulate the threads of all evil. Whether he desires it or not, Nerull is ultimately a servant to Tharizdun. However, Nerull makes no effort to free him and would not interfere if others sought to do so. Nerull is locked in eternal opposition to Pelor. While Pelor fosters life and brings the light of day, Nerull extinguishes life and brings darkness, perpetuating a never-ending cycle. Despite this inherent conflict, Nerull is not a confrontational deity. The Reaper works from the shadows, quietly increasing his power without drawing the attention of the Radiant Father. Patient and calculating, Nerull awaits the day when his plans will come to fruition. Nerull's relationship with Biori is uncertain, but his enmity towards her son, Obat-Hai, is clear. Obat-Hai nurtures life in the natural world, allowing it to flourish. Each winter, Nerull is said to tire of this vitality and symbolically slays him. Whether this is merely a display of his power or a means to wound Biori, no one can say for certain. Theologians ponder the consequences if Obat-Hai were left untouched. As the god of violent and untimely death, often linked with pain, suffering and despair, Nerull contrasts sharply with Wijaz, the goddess of lawful death and the afterlife. Wijaz is more of a steward of the afterlife, offering guidance to those who pass her gate, and as such, their portfolios do not fully overlap. Wijaz will order her faithful to destroy any undead in existence, a fact that puts her opposite to Nerull. The Reaper of Flesh just doesn't care and appears indifferent to her. This indifference extends to most other gods, though Nerull keeps a watchful eye on the actions of the greater deities. Does this mean he has no allies? The answer is both yes and no. Nerull respects Incabulus, who begins the work that Nerull finishes, yet their fates remain separate. Neither deity would come to the other's aid unless faced with a shared threat. One mortal of note is Caius, a priest of Nerull who lived in the ancient Flan realm of Zulm. Caius sacrificed countless souls to gain the Reaper's favor, seeking to ascend as a demigod with dominion over undead and disease. However, his ritual failed, leaving scholars to ponder whether Nerull had planned this outcome all along. His doctrine is one of terror, dominance and the inevitability of mortality. While most mortals fear him as the harbinger of death, he does have a following, albeit a small one compared to other deities. However, Nerull does not care for organized religion. In fact, he finds that the absence of a formal church only heightens the fear the living have for him, which in turn makes him more powerful. He urges and indeed commands his followers to seek every opportunity to explore the intricacies of both death and undeath, seeing them as alternative states of existence. Most of his followers believe that undeath is a rare and sacred blessing, an honor granted only to those few deemed worthy of the bringer of darkness. This means that to them, mindless undead are not worthy of the gift, and meant to be controlled and to serve a purpose. He is clear that death comes to all things in time, and that patience is key to achieving the maximum effect. The long view often provides the best understanding of how specific actions can bring about the inevitable end. Death is certain, so it is wise to wait for the right moment. Sometimes this moment is immediate, while at other times it may take years, decades, or even centuries for a carefully laid plan to come to fruition. His followers are encouraged to embrace death, whether by hastening it for others or preparing themselves for the eventual transcendence of mortality. His agents of death are tasked with sowing fear and despair wherever they go, reminding others of their inevitable mortality. Ordinary people must believe that any attempt to appease him will draw his attention, something to be avoided at all costs. Nerull's true followers know that he draws power not from direct worship, but from the fear and avoidance of his name by the living. Thus, it is essential for his followers to spread this fear far and wide. Symbol. Behold the blasted skull, a gruesome centerpiece of true desolation. It is a face of endless dying, rotten, cracked, and stained with the filth of countless graves. Patches of dead hair cling like desiccated moss, and the eyes are empty sockets, gates to the eternal cold void. Crossed beneath it is the sickle of the Reaper. This is not a grand scythe of the harvest, but a primitive, blood-soaked crescent, more suited for a swift and agonizing murder. It drips with chilling crimson, the sacrificial offering of a life taken for enjoyment and gain. It is a symbol of the bloody slaughter that Nerull demands from his followers. This symbol is the mark of Nerull, the unholy sign of one who delights in the absolute cessation of life A side effect of having mostly small secretive cults is that his symbol has various variations. The sickle could be a scythe, a circle might be included to represent the moon, or it might be a more simplistic version of a skull and scythe. Temple. The entrance to Nerull's temple is always concealed. It could be hidden within the blackened maw of a natural cavern, behind creeping vines or jagged rocks. In lands where his worship is outlawed, these entrances are shrouded in secrecy, with only the faintest signs, a skeletal hand scratched onto the rock, or a rust-colored smear hinting at blood, betraying its presence. In more openly evil domains, the temple can be a visible building, looming as a foreboding black edifice, constructed of dark basalt and spires that twist, clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. Whatever the exterior, inside a temple, light is shunned and the flicker of a few candles offer the only illumination, creating eerie shadows. Walls are adorned with intricate bas-reliefs depicting the hierarchy of the underworld. Figures are carved in grotesque detail, their faces frozen in eternal torment or malevolent glee. At the center of these scenes stands a monumental depiction of Nerull himself, his skeletal form hunched, his gaping fanged maw consuming hapless souls, and his scythe raised high, as if ready to reap all who enter. The altar is a slab of blood-red stone, veined with streaks of black that seem to pulse faintly when viewed out of the corner of one's eye. Standing near it, a chill seeps into your bones, reminding all who enter that they tread on the threshold of the afterlife. At the heart of the main chamber, a deep sacrificial pit is often present. This is where sacrifices, be they material or living, are offered to Nerull. The bottom is hidden in shadows, and many believe it serves as a direct conduit to the god's realm. Nerull's clerics are feared throughout the lands as cold, calculating murderers. They are secretive and often solitary. On that rare occasion that they gather to perform a service or ritual, they dress in the same rust-red hue as the bones of their god. There are few services, as there is no large flock of devoted zealots. The most well-known is the blood ritual that is performed during the Blood Moon Festival on the 11th night of Cold Even. There are many rumors about the doings of the priests of Nerull. One thing they all have in common is human or humanoid sacrifices. Most rituals are conducted in complete silence, save for the occasional guttural and ancient chants of the leading priest. Scholars write that Nerull dwells in Carcery, known as the Red Prison. It has been described as a desolate and bleak plain of oppressive darkness and ruins. On that plain, he resides in the realm called the Crypt, or the Necromantheon, depending on who you ask. Nerull chose to dwell there and create a city carved from black ice, inhabited by the dead and the undead, where the souls of the unfavored dead are trapped within the walls, ceilings, and floors of the building. Fiends of all kinds wander the realm, devouring the shrieking souls trapped under Nerull's power. His underworld court is vast and complex, filled with ministers, proxies, warriors, and officers performing various roles in his realm and beyond. The most devoted hope to step into immortal servitude, ascending to become undead servants, such as a lich, a wraith, or other powerful undead being, bound to Nerull's will for eternity. These souls are given authority over the less faithful and might act as emissaries or agents of death in the mortal world. Particularly favored souls may be granted the honor of guarding the secrets of death. These spirits dwell in the cryptic places of power, like ancient tombs or necropolises. They become guardians of death's secrets and ensure that the mysteries of life and death remain hidden. Worship. Followers of Nerull are bound by his dark and nihilistic teachings, and violating these principles would be anathema to their fate, preserving or prolonging life out of compassion, destroying undead without justification, bringing joy or hope, showing mercy. His edicts, beliefs, and goals reflect his dominion over death and his worshippers' ruthless and cold devotion to his will. Death is the only truth. Life is fleeting and insignificant compared to the eternal nature of death. All things, no matter how powerful or virtuous, must bow before Nerull, and it is best to hasten it for others. Darkness reigns. The belief that one must be able to function in complete darkness and use it to their advantage, for it brings one closer to death's domain. Darkness shows what light hides. Embrace the inevitable. To be fearless while alive, accept suffering while alive, and know that death is not an end, but a transition to the gift of eternal existence. Advance the day of endless night, to bring about an age where life is extinguished and the world is ruled by death and undeath. Nerull's fateful work to hasten the end of lives and civilizations, glorifying him as the final arbiter of existence. Spread fear and despair. Nerull thrives on the terror and hopelessness of the living. His followers are tasked with instilling fear of him wherever they tread, whether through shadowy murders, necromantic practices, or cunning tale-spinning. Establish undying dominance. Nerull seeks to extend his dominion beyond the natural death of mortals by keeping control over the undead as his eternal servants. His priests and necromancers are tasked with ensuring that death's rule extends beyond the grave. The following aphorisms are often whispered during rituals, carved onto the tombs of the dead, or uttered by Nerull's priests to strike fear into the hearts of those who oppose them. All paths lead to the grave. Mercy is a lie. Death is the only truth. The scythe spares no one. The weak fall to the blade. The strong serve the reaper. Fear is the seed. Despair is the harvest. In death there is no escape. Relics. The Mace and Talisman of Crevel. This mace and talisman were the prized possessions of Crevel, a dreaded high priest of Nerull. Crevel was an agent of relentless destruction and a scourge across the lands. His name is synonymous with mass death and blighted corruption. These items were bestowed upon his devoted servant to hasten the inevitable end of all living things. Upon Crevel's death, or perhaps his dread ascension into deeper servitude to the Reaper, the mace and talisman resurfaced every few decades. A perpetual chill hangs about these items, the air itself seeming to grow thin and lifeless in their presence. The Mace of Crevel is a weapon of brutal simplicity, its dark iron head pitted and scarred, yet radiating an undeniably and malevolent power, and feeling heavier than its mass. A mighty weapon that strikes with unusual force and saps the life force from a living foe. It has a grim, limited ability to reanimate the fallen into mindless, loyal servants. The Talisman of Crevel is a simple, unadorned pendant of cold black obsidian, carved into the eternal grin of a skull. It is utterly without shine, seeming to absorb all light that touches it. It is said to have been carved from the petrified eye of a god's murderer. This dark pendant can unleash a localized wave of paralyzing doom, causing those caught in its radius to suddenly fall limp, their bodies obeying the laws of the grave before their time. Individually, these items have magical properties of their own, but when brought together and wielded by a follower of the Reaper of Flesh, they unlock more powerful effects. Censer of the Last Breath. This relic appears as a perforated iron sphere, the size of a large apple, suspended from a chain that is typically adorned with blackened cheap jewels. At its center, a crudely rendered holy symbol of Nerull is visible. It holds no pleasant scent. Instead, it is permanently infused with a sharp metallic odor, reminiscent of a recent battlefield. Unlike holy censers that burn incense for blessing, this device demands a more precious and perhaps more fitting fuel, the pulverized dust of gemstones. This act of grinding beautiful earthly wealth into a fine powder for the sole purpose of deadly combustion perfectly embodies the Reaper's contempt for all that is fleeting and alive. Around 4 different deadly fogs can be created, depending on the type of crushed gemstones used. The exact origins of the first censer of the Last Breath are disputed among Nerull's cults. What is certain is that the censer is not a tool of peaceful passage. It is an implement of lingering, inescapable doom, designed to extinguish life with the same suffocating indifference Nerull holds for the living. Tabard of the Disembodied. This tabard is not woven from earthly cloth, but from a material spun from smoke and shadow. It is a shifting, silvery grey garment that ripples faintly even in still air. While worn, the air around the wearer becomes noticeably cooler, and small, silvery decorations embroidered across its surface become visible, forming the sightless eyes of countless tiny skulls. To touch it is to feel a momentary icy disorientation, a feeling of one's own soul briefly slipping its mortal coil. style, the Tabard of the Disembodied is one of the more subtle yet terrifying relics of the Reaper. Its creation is tied to the concept that the truest terror comes from a death that cannot be resisted or even seen coming. Legends claim that the first tabard was the burial garment of a long-dead infamous wizard king who was so attached to his realm and castle that his spirit lingered, eventually growing mighty enough to step between the world of the living and the dead. Nerull's most favored necromancers managed to steal the essence of his eternal haunting to forge this garment. It embodies the silent, cold hand of death that touches all things eventually. Thanks for watching, and consider leaving a comment, like the video, subscribe and share it on other platforms. An extra thanks goes to those who have joined the Grey League through my website, where you can also find the video transcripts and many other articles. The link is in the description. Now, take care and see you in the next one.